doing a video from a different location. Yes, there's still clothes on the back of the sofa. Put them around where I know they'll dry and catch the air and be away from kids and animals. Um, but anyway, just want to do a video and talk about the communion of saints. Targeting of my family and I, especially my daughter and I here, it leads to somewhat alienation. Somewhat of I don't want to say reclusivity because reclusivity has a connotation of choice. Um, Reclusivity without the choice, that would be our situation. I try to do my best to make a bubble around her, and I try my best to keep only good people, entering her life. I try my best. People that are sincere, honest, not deceptive, kind, and if I can, find them, people that honestly you can feel the spirit of just trying their best to be righteous people. Those are the kind of people that I want around my daughter. Whatever they do now, their life now, or their life before, they're trying to be righteous people now. Generally, if I see signs of deception, then we'll back off. Because people always leak. People always leak. And if you pay attention to this channel, you know what leaking means. When people have an over excitedness emotionally, their emotional affect is over the top. Whatever emotion, people will leak their real attitudes, their real they'll leak their real attitudes, or attitudes that are beginning. You got to weed through stuff though, because sometimes if things are said just out of emotion, it may not be true. You got to really, really look through and sort through the statements made based on emotion and the statements made based on fact, but under the control of emotion. You got to weed through that stuff. But usually you can see people make a mistake when they leak, and then you can know if people are, trying to make them sound more repentant or more sincere than they really are. I'm not an expert at this either. Between a little bit of training with the military and I guess a lot of academic training in areas that would prepare someone to be able to learn this skill. And then, a ton of self-training videos, books, etc., meditation, prayer, Ignatian spirituality is very effective in teaching you how to look in, which helps you look at others. But anyway, you really learn the importance. That's why I have the wall of all of the different saints. It's going to get bigger and bigger. One of my dreams back, when I was a deacon, was to someday have a chapel. I did have my monastic cell on our dryer where we dry our corn, our rice, our fish in the Philippines. This is my in-laws' neighborhood. They're barangay. It's all family. Like 300-400 people. We're all related in one way or another. I should say my former in-laws. But our former pig pen. I think I talked about it in another video. The pig pen that I scrubbed down. I broke some parts of it off. Scrubbed down the cement, removed, like I said, removed some of the cement, some of the bamboo and wood, and then turned it into a little like monastic cell. right above the high tide when it came in, the water splashing under my feet about 10 feet deep. At really high tide, when it splashes in the cell a little bit, because it's a bamboo floor with pieces that are poured cement. Sometimes they'll splash in there, but that's my little cell. And I would say prayers in there and stuff. And the rare times, actually, no, I don't think I ever had Eucharist there. I don't think. Um, but I always had prayer and incense and stuff. But anyway, I always had a dream that I would have a little chapel by the sea, and besides the echinostasis, that would be normal. With every levels, on the dasis, um, varying levels of. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, the the levels are called dasis, I think. I forget my iconostasis tradecraft, but I would have a very large iconostasis. Probably, I figured anywhere 4 to 7 levels. Um, but on the other 3 walls, well, actually 2 walls, well, maybe on a third wall in the back, but that would be smaller. I would have icons all over the place, layers and layers of icons, or levels and levels of icons, we'll say, all the way up to the ceiling. And it would have been called Communique de Sang, de Sang or Santé, Communique, or no, Commune de Santé, Communion of Saints Chapel. Communion de Saints? No, Saints is without. Anyway, Communion of Saints Chapel. But anyway, yeah, my little dream for a long time. It would be built on a hill, like I said, overlooking the beach, overlooking the ocean, and it would be in the middle of pasture land. But anyway, of course, there'd be like a little sidewalk and fence around the sidewalk. But yeah, it would also be pasture land. It'd be a little fence around the chapel, but still it would be pasture land. Anyway, the community of saints is always there. That's why I don't worry so much about myself. I'll meet people every now and then, talking to people. Some of those people, I'll encounter them. I'll be like, "Oh, this person's deceptive," or "Oh, this person's not really that nice," or "Oh, this person. Oh, yeah, they seem to be genuine." But in the back of my mind, I never forget the communion of saints. It can be comforting in times when others would be lonely. I never forget the communion of saints. And then looking back through my life, I just had this realization today how either through Catholic and Orthodox benefactors, or especially Catholic ones, people that don't mean giving me money, but I mean people that have just showed up throughout my life to give various blessings, um, like a Sacred Heart statue that we used to have in the Philippines, but actually I gave it to a family. Um, yeah, big Sacred Heart statue. We had it for a long time. Um, but I gave it. Gosh, I can't remember who I gave it to. I gave it to a family. Let's see, my Madonna with Child, also it's known for many names: Our Lady of Czestochowa, Our Lady of Good Counsel, Our Lady of the Romans. Has many different names. This icon. I gave that to, I think, my in-laws, former in-laws have it. But you know, just various things that have popped up are in my conversion. Somebody gave me a book from Thomas Kempis, which is the book that's used for the consecration of Saint Louis de Marie Montfort. That's the book that's read from during that consecration. Let's see, other things. A lot of wonderful things. But it would be little angels or God moving people, unless there's somebody, there in the background from my family or my dad's family that are always watching over me. I don't know. But I'll give the credit to the Lord. With the communion of saints, you're never alone. Never. There's many who've gone before us who've treaded worse waters or who haven't. But they have been a blessing and a consolation. And they'll remind you that you're not alone. And redoing my consecration, revisiting my consecration, and reading from Thomas à Kempis. It's really a beautiful thing. It's very humbling. Because again, no Christian, especially us churches that honor, that bond with the communion of saints, those who've gone before, not just the martyrs, all who've gone before. Sometimes people forget the servants of God, people not fully canonized, people that may not be known as much, but still were holy enough to be noticed. And then there's also the communion of saints, those who were never noticed, or maybe, some saints have had controversial lives, and it took 200 or 300 years before they're canonized. And then some were just never noticed, or some things weren't known until later on. Here I'll speak of servant of God Nicholas Black Elk. I read Black Elk, shoot, gosh, that was back in high school? Yeah, it was in high school. I read Black Elk. Among others, but I love Black Elk. He says things very direct. He doesn't pull any punches. But I didn't know there was another book printed about his conversion to Catholicism. I didn't know that. It wasn't until we came back to the States from overseas in 2017 that I'm like, what? I never knew that. He's a very holy Lakota, um, um, medicine man, a healer, and yeah, I'm just surprised, and it's interesting. I wish that he was still alive, could pick his brain about his how the mixing of, like, example, the lodge. How do you mix the lodge with Catholicism? Some people would say, oh, it could be occultic, but then on the other hand, there's nothing anywhere that says that God doesn't let saints revisit, doesn't let Our Lady visit, and that He doesn't take different expressions in the lodge. So you may not be talking to the dead. It may be talking to God speaking to you. It may not be, the spirits of the directions. Maybe God is taking a certain form to speak to us. You got to look at things deeper than just face value. But it's just a beautiful thing, the communion of saints, and the fact that he's already a servant of God. I was like, wow. He was a catechist, a teacher. Wow. incredible. But so the communion of saints is a very beautiful thing. We're never alone. Never. Never alone. Even in the deepest, most uh, tempestuous situation where evil is standing right at your door knocking, or maybe it's already entered. Maybe Thomas à Kempis talks about this, when you open the door. This is something actually that the Lord and Our Lady put in my heart recently, when you open the door, be careful because eventually evil and sin, it won't want to leave and it'll take over the whole house. And that's when I decided to redo my consecration, to make a firmer commitment. But, during those times, or at times when it seems like God's not listening, He is. He is, even if He's not speaking. And you always have the communion of saints. Beautiful thing. We are connected to those who've gone before in Christ. It doesn't matter what they've done. Sometimes different denominations will, besides Orthodox and Catholic, and I guess to a certain point Episcopalian, we remember the communion of saints all the time. But now other churches, some of the Anabaptists, like the Mennonites, they'll remember the martyrs. Um, some of the other churches, Eastern churches like the the um, the Arian churches, um, Church of the East, um, the Monophysite churches, they remember. I mean, there's a few churches that remember, but it's a powerful thing, the communion of saints. We are never alone. Never. Doesn't matter where you are, what you're going through, or how down you feel, or how alienated you are, or how much you're suffering. Especially people are causing the suffering. Life. People sometimes say, "Oh, it's just life happened to you." It's a different thing. Life is challenges that God allows. Sometimes the devil, sometimes not. Sometimes it's yourself. Challenges that you walk into and encounter. Then there's evil directly from the hands of the devil. Then there's evil that the devil whispers in the ears of people who do things to you. When people do evil to you on purpose, because the devil has guided them to do it, this isn't normal evil. This is wicked evil. That's the worst kind because it has an alienating effect on you. It doesn't matter if you deserved it or not. Well, I mean, nobody deserves evil on them. But, it doesn't matter what origin this is, whether it's some kind of balance, not a balance correction, a pendulum swinging because there's some cultural action or some kind of reaction from what you've done or reaction of who you are. Wickedness is wickedness. So it has a very, very alienating effect. You're never alone. The communion of saints is always there. Always. So, I prefer icons, but when money's tight, I'm not going to buy some cheap junk icon that, is printed on a printing press. Now, you got icons that are prints. I used to do that. It's just a color print that's put on special paper or photo paper, and then it's embedded into the wood of an icon or icon screen. I've heard some people call them icon screens, and they're just mounted. But and then you treat the wood, sand it, stain it, varnish it. I had one that actually varnished the print too, and actually made it look really good. but it depends on the kind of paper you use. But those can be blessed, but it's not the same as a handwritten icon, a painted one. You don't paint icons, you write them. That's what it's called. I've known a couple of people who do icons. You write an icon, and it's very different because as the person does that, generally a priest or a monk or a nun or a sister, when they write the icon, there's energy that's imbued in the icon. They're praying, they're meditating as they write it and as they prepare it. It's very different. And also that's how some earn their livelihood. But in the Eastern churches, that's considered almost on the level of a spiritual gift if you can write icons. But so I do prints. Like I said, it's not the same. And if you can't give them the proper respect, or you live around people such as we do that, enter your house all the time, it seems. I believe it's through the attic. We just bought new Tupperware bowls, and a whole bunch of lids are missing already. We've only had them 2 weeks. A whole bunch of lids are gone. This is the kind of stuff that, troublemakers will do. Enter your house, and they'll take stuff. And maybe if you do a police report or you do a report for a manager or for an agency, sometimes all of a sudden the stuff will appear. Like I've had electronics all of a sudden appear under a couch, or just all kinds of absolutely ridiculous stuff. I had a weapon that disappeared for a day and then magically appeared underneath the cushions of a couch. Um, but This is the kind of stuff, that's why I have it. I pray for the day when I no longer need one, except maybe to hunt. But until that time, we'll have at least one in the house, probably one in a backup, or I'll carry one of the two. But anyway, so sometimes our stuff will disappear. So, I'm hesitant to invest in an icon. Plus, financially, it's not really probable right now. Or even to make an icon screen and mount them. It's just not financially possible right now. So we have the Xerox copies. Whatever you have to do, put up your favorite saints, your baptismal name, your confirmation name. I mean, if you're, some kind of minor order or major order, your ordination name, or just, somebody that touches your heart, and put that up and realize that you're never alone. Never.